Hey YouTube, it's ICU and welcome to the 182nd episode of Best Tech Info and Rumors. So to start off, I want to talk about iOS 7, 7.0.6, 7.1, and the Untethered Evasion 7 jailbreak. And to start off with all of that, if you guys have yet to watch my Untethered 7.0.6 jailbreak tutorial, I highly recommend doing so now, and you'll see the importance later as I go more into depth on the topic. So I'll have a link to that down below in the more info. And to start off, referencing an article on jailbreak evasion info over a month ago on February 4th, 2014, Apple seeded the 5th beta iteration of iOS 7.1 to registered developers, a beta firmware that was confirmed to have patched numerous vulnerabilities exploited by the Evasion 7 untethered jailbreak. Unfortunately, as I've been saying for months now, Apple's public release of 7.1 will undoubtedly patch the current iOS 7 jailbreak, making this the perfect time to upgrade to iOS 7.0.6, as it will soon be impossible to jailbreak 7.1 untethered on any iDevice. Now first, it's important to understand that prior to iOS 7.0.6, all iterations of iOS 7 and even iOS 6 have included a major SSL vulnerability. Now while most iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch owners are aware of the vulnerability's threat, the direness of the situation is often overlooked. So essentially, the SSL security threat affects the way an iDevice connects to various services with an SSL certificate. So for example, websites with HTTPS in their domain name, allowing for easy access of information that's supposed to be encrypted and sent directly to the site server. Now, the current common misconception is that it would require an extraordinary amount of skill and effort to break into Apple's SSL security protocols. Now, as Pod2G from the Evaders put it, quote, "The average script kiddie can do this on a public Wi-Fi network with no effort." So at this point, if you're not on 7.0.6, you're probably wondering what the best solution is to prevent the possibility of being targeted while at your local Starbucks or on any public Wi-Fi network for that matter. And it's actually quite simple. Upgrade to 7.0.6 before it's too late. Because as I'm sure most of you are already aware, once Apple releases 7.1 to the public, they will effectively stop signing 7.0.6, making it both impossible to restore back to the latest and last public firmware supported by the Evasion 7 jailbreak, and rendering any future prospect of jailbreaking before iOS 8 hopeless. Now I'll tackle that topic, being iOS 8, in the next untethered jailbreak post-Evasion 7 later on after Apple releases iOS 7.1, so just be sure to stay tuned for that. I'll have complete details on the topic, and I'll also inform you guys of the best way to handle it and to maintain your untethered jailbreak on iOS 7 or 7.0.6, which again I highly recommend upgrading to. Now the security threat for those of you who are on any other firmware besides iOS 7.0.6 is certainly real enough, and it's obvious that most individuals aren't fond of the prospect of having to completely restore, but unfortunately, that's what has to be done. Now, while there is a package available through Cydia that applies the SSL update to jailbroken non-7.0.6 devices, it would be the equivalent of fixing something like a high-performance car or device with duct tape and bubble gum. It simply won't hold up, and the long-term ramifications of installing that patch on a firmware that wasn't meant to have that update has yet to be tested. So devices with the SSL update could potentially run into issues in the future, unfortunately forcing them to restore to the public firmware at the time, which will be 7.1 or later. And of course, that firmware, those firmwares won't be capable of being jailbroken with Evasion 7 because it will be patched once Apple releases 7.1. And if you have yet to update and you're interested, again, I'll have a link down below to my untethered jailbreak tutorial where I also detail the complete restore process inside of iTunes. So again, just be sure to check it out and watch through it if you have yet to. And along the same lines, referencing another article, a vast majority of jailbreakers from around the globe are wondering when the company will issue iOS 7.1 to the public, effectively patching the Evasion 7 jailbreak, and I actually can't stress that enough. Once 7.1 is officially released, I will undeniably be flooded with numerous questions regarding the new firmware, the Evasion 7 jailbreak patch itself, and the next untethered jailbreak, which again, as I've stated before, won't be released until after Apple issues both iOS 8 and their next round of devices. But getting back on track here, it was previously believed that Apple would require devices to be on iOS 7.1 before installing their SXSW or South by Southwest app, indicating that the company was planning on releasing 7.1 to the public before making their app widely available. However, that theory did fall apart earlier when a version of the app that didn't rely on iOS 7.1 as a dependency started rolling out on Apple's App Store. Now, a source from Jailbreak Evasion info that wish to be kept anonymous claims that iOS 7.1 will likely be released next week. And I'll have a direct link to that and the source quote down below, but given Apple's past release history, it's likely that the company will either release 7.1 GM, Gold Master, or the finalized version on Monday, March 10th, or on Friday, March 14th, 2014. And if Apple decides to go with releasing a GM firmware this time around, it wouldn't surprise me if they released 7.1 GM on Monday, followed by the finalized public version on Friday. But of course, we'll just have to wait and see. I'll have more details as the story unfolds and as we progress into next week. I'll also, of course, provide you guys with a tethered Jailbreak 7.1 tutorial exclusively for the iPhone 4. Now, there is definitely a reason for that. I'll go more into depth during my actual Jailbreak tutorial itself, but just to summarize really quick here, the Jailbreak utilities that will be made available once 7.1 is released for the firmware will rely on WinOCM's OpenSnow project that takes advantage of GeoHot's old limerain exploit for A4-based devices from 2010. Now, it would function on other devices besides the iPhone 4. However, with the release of newer firmwares, Apple has phased out the devices that limerain had previously functioned on, again, being those powered by A4 processors. So it definitely would have worked on things like the original iPad and the 4th generation iPod Touch, but again, they're no longer receiving updates. They didn't even get 7.0, so of course that's the reason why the iPhone 4 will be the only device supported by the 7.1 jailbreak, because it will be primarily based off of a boot ROM exploit from 2010. Now, next up, I have some really awesome news regarding free app life. For those of you who aren't familiar with the service, it was created by both myself and Adrian from Jailbreak Nation and iPod Uplink as a method for users to easily obtain points by downloading sponsored applications and then redeem said points for various prizes such as application codes on Apple's App Store, gift cards, and other bigger, more expensive prizes. Previously, we had to take the service offline for a period of time. Well, now thanks to our new development team, we've made huge strides in our fully native iOS app that should be launching soon. I'll have more details for you guys on that soon. I'll also have a link down below to free app life, and of course I will be creating an in-depth video on the service once it does go public, so just be sure to stay tuned for that. Again, it will be posted on my channel the day it's live. And finally, to wrap up this episode, I wanted to talk about the next generation of smartphones. So if you watch this series on a weekly basis, you will know that last week Samsung unveiled their next smartphone in their Galaxy lineup, being the Samsung Galaxy S5. Now, the new handset, while still being powerful and offering impressive specs, has been receiving a lot of criticism recently, surprisingly including those who are already current Samsung handset owners. Now, the primary reason for this is from a spec and design standpoint. The Galaxy S5 is primarily an incremental update, similar to what Apple does with their S series. So for instance, the 3GS, the 4S, and now the 5S. Although one could argue this time around the iPhone 5S brought more to the table and to Apple's S series with its built-in fingerprint sensor, its 64-bit CPU, its dual camera flash system, and overall improvements to the camera itself. Now, while the Galaxy S5 did introduce a fingerprint sensor of its own, it's fundamentally different than the fingerprint sensor found on the iPhone 5S in the sense that it isn't used in exactly the same way, and it can only be operated in one orientation, with the swipe down passing over the bottom portion of the touchscreen and the button itself. But it's interesting to hear what people have to say on the topic, because of course companies like Apple and Samsung can't include major innovations in every single product refresh. They'd simply run out of ideas, and I did go into that in the whole concept in last week's episode of Best Tech Info and Rumors. So if you have yet to watch it on the desktop version of YouTube, just be sure to click the annotation that's on the screen to go back to that video. And I'm not really going to talk about the iPhone 6 in this video, other than to say you shouldn't believe every rumor you hear, and that goes for everything really, until Apple officially announces it on stage at their press conference, which should be later this year, presumably in the fall. Nothing is officially confirmed and everything could change. And as far as next generation phones are concerned, I wanted to discuss a concept that I found extremely interesting. Now, there's a phone from a Russian company dubbed Yoda Phone. The second generation was previously announced around the same time as the Galaxy S5, and the Yoda Phone 2 will feature dual displays, a normal OLED display on the front and an e-ink display on the back that's fully capable of accepting touch input just like like the front touchscreen would. Now at this point, some of you may be asking, well, what exactly is the purpose of having a smartphone with two displays? Now there are tons of possibilities and practical applications for this. But first I just wanted to mention an existing device that takes advantage of an e-ink display, being the Pebble Steel smartwatch and the original Pebble smartwatch. And I actually detailed the device in my complete unboxing and review video of the Pebble Steel. But essentially an e-ink display will allow for extraordinary battery life as it doesn't consume much and it's fully 100% readable in direct sunlight. Something else that utilizes an e-ink display is the Kindle Paperwhite tablet, which has been around for a while now, but really one of the things that makes the Yotta Phone 2 stand out is its added touchability. Now the Yotta Phone 2's predecessor, the original one, had an awkward navigation bar at the bottom and you couldn't actually touch the screen on the back and interface with it like you can with the Yotta Phone 2. And also another thing that's interesting is that because it requires so little battery power, the screen on the back, being the e-ink display, stays on even after the phone dies with useful information. Now while the Russian smartphone manufacturer may not have perfected the concept with the Yotta Phone 2, it's something that others in the mobile space should definitely look into, and it's certainly a breath of fresh air, as we haven't seen real significant innovations in smartphones in quite some time now, which is, of course, as I previously mentioned, what a lot of customers are starting to complain about with these minor and incremental smartphone updates. Now the finalized version of the Yotta Phone 2 unfortunately isn't set to go on sale until the end of 2014 in Russia and certain parts of Europe. It's currently unknown when the company is planning to make the device available in the US, but they're shooting for early 2015. So if you're interested in the concept, don't get your hopes up, as we won't be seeing it for a while. Alright, and that's it for this episode. If you liked it and you want a chance to enter to win a $100 Amazon gift card in this video, just be sure to rate it up, hit that subscribe button to be notified every time I release new videos, and leave a relevant comment down below in the comment section. If you don't know what to leave in the comment section, try answering the question of the day. And this time around, I think I'm going to make it about the next generation of smartphones. So what innovations do you hope companies will implement into their handsets? Just be sure to let me know down below or on Jailbreak Tech Info. You can also really leave anything related to the future of smartphones. And if you guys want to be updated more often, such as when I release new videos and cover jailbreak topics, just be sure to like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, add me on one of your circles inside of Google+, and follow me on Instagram at ICUID. Again, links to everything can be found below, and until next time, this is ICU signing out.